Today, I'm really excited to have with me Kerri Neal, the co-chair of Social Justice Cooperative Newfoundland and Labrador. Thank you so much for giving me some time today. Welcome.
Hi, thanks, Shauna. It's really great to be here.
The first thing I'm going to ask is for you to tell us a little bit about what Social Justice Co-op is and how it got started.
Yeah, so the SJC has been around for about 10 years. We are a member-run nonprofit cooperative operating mainly Newfoundland Labrador. We do a lot of like social and environmental justice, but it's a really interesting organization in that we are very member driven. So I would say like what we work on changes a lot, kind of like based on what folks are excited about and passionate and where the energy is. But we try to kind of hold this like thorough vision that we call the revolution of care. And that's really kind of advocating for, um, you know, feminism, decolonization, love and care for each other as individuals, for the land, for all the flora and fauna that we share the land with, and trying to really connect a lot of different social justice movements in kind of recognizing that, capitalism is a big reason why we face so many injustices, and trying to show people how they're all connected and how we need a movement based on kind of care to, to take care of each other and to resist the different types of oppression that we face.
That's a tall order.
Yeah, it is. And I should say we formally started about 10 years ago, but really like our roots go back about 60 years here on the island. It was kind of started in the 60s by some professors at the university who got really into Oxfam and started an Oxfam NL chapter. And then in the 2000s, there were some issues with Oxfam not being allowed to be like political under Stephen Harper. And so the members kind of transitioned the funding that they had and started a cooperative based on, taking care of local movements, but also connecting it to kind of a global understanding of what's happening.
So, how many members do you currently have, and what sort of organizations, like what's the range of organizations that you have as members?
Mostly we have individual members. We have 200, 250 right now. It's slowly growing. It is like a one-time membership. So, if you signed up 10 years ago, maybe you're not active, but you can still come to our AGM and vote. And we just have one or two organizations that are members. When we first started, so the Oxfam NL chapter had a building which we rented out to a small business called Food for Thought that sold kind of bulk food, organic food, international foods, and the building. So they were a member, but then actually the building burned down. So alas, yeah, we we don't have that anymore, unfortunately.
So you're a virtual organization then, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. We used to meet more in person, and then since the pandemic, we really moved online. And we found that it was like a lot more accessible. I mean, we try to balance in person and online, but we were very like St. John's focused when we were in person, and now kind of moving more online, we've been able to reach out to like other parts of the province more easily. But we do like a big part of our work, I would say, is relationship building and the social aspect. So I think because it's easier to do that stuff in person, we are still very St. John's based. A lot of our members are there. We do try to have like games nights or movie nights online occasionally to build those relationships across the island and the province. But we are definitely very more St. John's based than
And so why a cooperative? Like why was that model
I got a cat
so
trying to get on my
important?
keyboard.
Was that your cat? That's amazing. Awesome. That happens a lot. I mean, I had a dog and she used to bark during interviews all the time. It's okay. It's totally cool.
Yeah, why did we start as a co-op? It's a good question. Because originally, like Oxfam was just a regular kind of nonprofit. But when we transitioned, we did have one board member, or founding member, who was like had a long history working in the cooperative movement here in the province. And he really believed in the democracy and transparency that cooperatives give to their members. Cooperatives are unique in that there are these like 7 international cooperative principles that ideally every co-op like around the world is supposed to follow. And it is about like, yeah, democracy, one member, one vote. So no matter how many shares you have, everyone, gets one vote at the AGM or special members meetings. So people don't have kind of like over influence if they have more shares. But there's also a commitment to social justice and, being transparent about the money and how it's used. Yeah. And yeah, it is, it kind of, I think, works better with our values as a nonprofit that advocates for social justice. It allows us to, be democratic and allow our members more ownership of what we're doing, which is
I think completely member or like, is it completely member owned or do you also get funding somewhere, other funding?
We are primarily able to pay our staff through monthly donors. So we have, individuals, members, volunteers in the community, supporters who donate monthly, either from $5 to $250. That's like a huge part of our operational funding. And we really want to keep it that way because it allows us to be accountable to our members. And we have been critical of nonprofits that we see as like getting a lot of government funding and then not criticizing the government in key moments.
Sure.
So we do occasionally, get government fundings from different pots for like certain operations or events, but we're really wary of getting operational funding, like long-term funding that would pay for permanent staff, because we want to kind of keep that independent and like loud, assertive voice.
For sure. I know this is a really simple, rudimentary question, but I'm going to ask it. What is social justice for folks that don't know or don't understand what that is?
Yeah, it's a good question. For me, I guess it's about, advocating for everyone to be treated fairly and equally, that everyone has basic human rights. And I think for me, like, maybe it's not defined as like, what Canada defines as human rights, but like the right to housing and the right to food and clean air, and a future. I really value that, that thought that like, we have to take care of the world for the next like 7 generations and thinking through how do we care for each other and make sure that no one is left behind, no one is disposable. And for us, like that looks like a lot of different things. I mean, right now we are doing, we're supporting Tent City for Change, which is a movement of people who are protesting against the shelter system. And so these are people who have been really hard done by life, like have been in prison or have had like mental health issues or disability issues and just like aren't getting cared for by government and really being abandoned, I would say, by our communities. But then we're also doing like Free Palestine work, and looking at how, this genocide is happening, on the other side of the world, and how do we try and stop it. So really like local to global perspectives. We do disability justice. We do women's equality, support for the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, Black empowerment, Indigenous activism. migrant solidarity. Yeah, we protest against oil, but then we also protest against like mega renewable energy projects because, just because something is considered green doesn't actually mean that it's really good for our environment. Like Muskrat Falls was a pretty notorious hydro dam here that we resisted. We advocate for the city of St. John's to clear the sidewalks so that people can, walk around safely in the winter, and for better transit so that people don't have to depend on vehicles, or for those who can't, drive a vehicle for whatever reason. We have done a wide variety of things. We're trying to, work more with the union movement and support unionization efforts and strikes that happen in the city.
So basically, you're kind of fighting for a post-capitalist, post-colonial world, Canada, or world, basically, right?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of struggles that are kind of short term and long term, and we are also trying to think through like, well, what does it look like to have a post-colonial or post-capital world? I would say a lot of that happens in our book club. We meet every 2 weeks and read different, like mostly nonfiction, but some fiction that helps us kind of imagine how we can work together differently, how we can imagine the future differently. And then we try to put that into like real time. Like I would say the 10 City for Change collective have been doing a lot of like mutual aid work, which we've talked about is like, really important for, helping us feel safe and secure in a world that looks different. Because I think people, we like to think that the government is taking care of us. There are a lot of examples that they don't, but they do provide a safety net right now. So how do we kind of like resist individualism and realize that like we need to keep each other safe and show up for each other, and that can make us safe.
So it's kind of a transitional time, really, right now, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, there's no playbook for how you do this. But I would say in the past 5 years, like we have grown a lot. And I think we are building a more cohesive movement that's allowing us to like experiment more and kind of put more into practice. Like it definitely started where we were just like showing up at all the protests and doing what we can. And now we're trying to think like, okay, like, how does this look 10 years down the road? What are we building towards?
Yeah, so that's another question I had was how do you determine what you're going to do in a month, say? Like how do you determine what protests you're going to organize or the book clubs you're going to do and or what maybe National Day of Truth and Reconciliation or International Women's Day, like how do you determine all of those things?
That's a good question. I would say a lot of it is really like member oriented. We have one staff who's designated as kind of our volunteer coordinator, and we try to use a model where people come to us and they're like, I'm really excited about putting free menstrual products in every bathroom, or I'm really concerned about Palestine and I want to organize a protest, and I really want to support 10 City and I need to buy people smokes. Like, how do we do that? And so people come to us and we kind of have we try to support them and, connecting them with other people who we might think are interested, promoting what they're doing, kind of explaining what we've done in the past and how it's worked or how it hasn't, and really kind of going from there. And we've definitely had a lot of things that like there's a lot of passion about, and then the person leading that had to step away and that work kind of stopped. But then we try to keep an archive of what we've done, and I would say our staff person is kind of an archive of what we've done too, and kind of like provide like a thorough line between all the organizing, because like sometimes there's just really a lot of excitement about something for a minute, and we want to connect how it has worked in the past and and how to, connect with people who were involved and then weren't, but maybe interested in this action. And yeah, so we're very fluid, I would say.
One of the things that you mentioned is safety. And I think people that might be new to protesting or supporting may not realize the resistance that is also growing. So there's support that's growing, but there's also resistance. You know, a lot of people don't believe that capitalism should be dismantled. A lot of people believe that, colonialism isn't even a thing. And so how do you keep people safe, and what sort of things might people run into, especially in rural communities?
Yeah, I think that is something that we're still talking about. I think there is kind of a safety in definitely in numbers.
Yeah.
And yeah, actually we were talking about this at book club last night. Because yeah, is it safer to be a public figure? And so people feel like they know you, so if something happens to you, maybe they're more likely to kind of show up for you. Or is it safer to be more anonymous, and maybe if you are disruptive, you'll kind of get away with it, because you hid your face, and
Right.
or it definitely happens. We see it online where people make a statement and then they get fired, or lose
Yes.
friends, or get death threats. I've lost a job and different volunteer positions because of things that I've said online. And I've had people come into my place of work and get upset at
Wow.
me. I'm a very public person in this small town.
Yeah.
But I also I think there is kind of that safety in being a public presence, because people kind of know who I am. So when I do need help, people show up.
Right.
And I think those relationships that you build will keep you will help keep you safe, because if you lost a job, you've got a friend who can help you get another job, or let you stay on their couch if you got evicted. Or I think we kind of have to take care of each other. And it looks different in different ways, but yeah, we definitely support, if someone is ever having to move, we reach out to our members and say hey, can you show up for this person? I've had members sleep on my couch, or done grocery runs. We do have a mutual aid fund where we send people $200 to pay rent or get some groceries. And yeah, I guess try to remind ourselves that it's we could be disposed of under capitalism for any reason at any time. If I got a disability, the government's not going to take care of me. My employer is not going to appreciate, might fire me, or my landlord could evict me if I can't pay rent, if I had a sudden issue come up. And those things are going to happen whether I speak up or not. So the more you speak up and the more you take the time to create a community around you who shares your values and is going to show up for you, I think the more real safety that we have.
That's amazing. And please explain, to the best of your ability, what mutual aid is for folks that don't understand what that is.
Yeah, I would say mutual aid is just trying to show up for each other, and taking care of people that are in the movement with you. I think there's a lot of kind of individualism under capitalism. It's very you only take care of yourself and maybe your immediate family. But I think that makes us more insecure, really, because, if anything happens, you only have a small network of people to really rely on. And I think the more we take care of each other, there is a reciprocity, I guess, expected. Maybe not as an immediate thing, but it is, I guess, yeah, there's a hope that, yeah, as we take care of each other, we'll receive that care in return. And it's about, yeah, relationship building and um, yeah, that friendship I think is an important part of it as well. I think a lot of people just feel like really lonely under capitalism, and you hear about all these issues and you're like, what could I do? Everything is awful. And I find a lot of comfort in just like having friends who recognize that there are issues and share my values. And even if I'm gonna have a small impact as a person, it makes me just like feel better about my days if I'm like trying to do something.
Yeah, well, and there is a financial component often to mutual aid, right? And so that is having a pot that you share, whoever needs it at the time. You all put into it when you can, when you're kind of, have a little bit more disposable income, and then when someone needs it or you need it, then it's there. Is that right? Is that the way it works?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we see a lot of mutual aid with like GoFundMe's for different
Yeah.
reasons, I would say. And the SJC does have like a small pot that we've used to just kind of send people money, like really no questions asked. Like we don't ask for receipts about how you used it. It's just like if someone comes to us and says like, yeah, I need some support. We kind of just trust in that. Um, because yeah, I think living in this society where everything is financialized, it's money is an important part of taking care of each other, unfortunately.
Yeah. Um, what about growth? Meaning, how have you gained supporters? Like, how do you do that? But also, I mean, the time that we're living in, I think a lot more people are becoming awake, are learning since the pandemic, and so are doing inner healing, inner work, and then, determining, okay, what's next? How do I step out into the world and make a difference? I guess that's a lot of questions. Sorry. What about the supporters first? Like, how have you grown?
Yeah, I do think we have grown, especially in the past 5 years. It is hard to measure because people kind of come and go,
Sure.
but a lot of the times I do see like folks who are involved in the SJC. Maybe they start something of their own or they join another organization, and we are still all kind of connected to the same movement, and I think that's really important. Um, we, I mean, I would say our big success is that we kind of just show up where the people are. Like we're not kind of top down saying like this year we're really focused on water,
Yeah,
or
of course.
you know
Yes.
we if there's a protest we'll try to get there and we'll reach out to the organizers and say like how can we help. So we're very fluid and um trying to, as movements kind of come and go, pick up people and grow larger and um, help them stay connected in what we're doing and what's happening in their community. So yeah, I think showing up for others is an important part of it, and not just only going to your the things that you organize, but being an active part of your community and meeting other people. Because really, the way we see it is like there are so many things that are wrong in our society, and
Yeah.
there's not just one silver bullet. And people are going to have different passions and interests and skills, and we want to support all of that. So yeah, how do we just kind of try and connect the movements, and so that the people who are advocating for better transit understand how their work is linked to the people who are like advocating against the genocide, and who are advocating for land back, and how all these are linked. Having a
That
vision, I
that
guess.
I think that that's pretty amazing. Having a vision like that to drawing the lines between all of the cause. I shouldn't say causes. All of the important things that are going on in the world that you support and or protest against. Um, and those things continue to grow, like we were saying, and it's like a whack-a-mole of,
Yeah.
oh, what's next? And so let me ask you this: how do you take care of yourselves? I mean, you talk about mutual aid. And I think that one of the most important things about it is you can be so fueled and so driven that it's difficult to take care of yourself. So how do you build that in to your organization and to your causes, the things you're supporting?
It is challenging to, take care of yourself, especially, I mean, everyone is, I think, overworked and underpaid. I think that's a big barrier into like how people get involved in the first place. But I mean, for me, I think I get a lot of fuel from the community and the friendships and relationships that I've built, and trying to really make a point to prioritize those relationships, I think, is important, because it's not just that you're comrades, you do become friends. And so when someone says like, a friend asks you to come to an event, maybe you're more likely to want to show up for them. And we utilize the community in those ways too. Like, there's a really great organization here called First Light. They do a music festival every year. We always try to like show up for the big dance party. Like, we do a couple years ago we did a Cancel Canada Day, which we transitioned to like a Land Back Day, where we just kind of come together on July 1st and hang out in the park, and maybe there's some speeches, there's lots of food. We always try to have food at events.
Of course. Feed people. Yeah.
Exactly.
I can only see you from the nose up now.
Oh,
for some reason.
I see my cat.
There we go. There we go. Kitty on the loose. Yeah, we were talking about the things the ways that you take care of yourself and be with others. Take care of each other, I guess, is it really, isn't it?
Yeah, and we try to say it's okay to rest and to step away and to take that time. Like, we try not to treat each other as transactions and, oh, I got 10 people at this meeting. It's okay if there's 4 people there and you had a really in-depth conversation. Yeah. We start every meeting with like a check-in circle where we kind of talk about like, how are you? How are you feeling coming into the meeting? How's your capacity? And definitely like there's no shame if, you didn't do the task that you said you were going to do. We try to just we try not to move with a sense of urgency, because what we're doing is hard work and it is slow work. And it's easy to get kind of flustered, I think, if you feel like, everything is an emergency, because it does feel like everything is an emergency, but we're a small movement and we're up against like big forces. So we also had to be kind of kind to each other and to ourselves.
What about you yourself? So how long have you been involved, and what would you have done differently if you started over?
Yeah, I guess I have been an activist, easy for like 10, 15 years. I think, as a teenager, I first got involved in like Amnesty International chapter that was here. And then the more kind of I learned, I shifted and tried a lot of different routes. I was part of like a feminist action collective. I ran for the NDP. Yeah, I've definitely put my toes into a lot of places, and I definitely encourage that, to just get involved somewhere and feel free to move around. And I actually first got hired by the SJC like 6 years ago. I was like the first staff member, and originally we were going to do actually a democracy campaign about like, how do we improve democracy in Canada? Like, do we change the electoral reform or financial spending and that kind of thing? And we had a town hall with our members, and our members were like, we don't care about democracy, like we care about climate change and Muskrat Falls, and like that's where the focus should be. And kudos to the board, they really listened to that and decided to do more of an environmental justice focus. And we started reaching out to folks who are already doing things. Like there was a small Fridays for Future St. John's chapter, and there were some like Indigenous activists doing anti-pipeline work. And I think kind of from there, that's when we started taking that kind of decentralized model of like, okay, who's already doing things, or who has excitement about things, and how can we show up? How do we, make sure that they have a megaphone, or help them, book a venue, because we are very familiar with every venue in the city. How do we help them find like someone else who might be interested and spread their message? And so then it kind of broadened to where we are now with like kind of the social and environmental justice lens.
I don't want to assume, I guess I have, and that is on me, that you have very diverse members, that you have representation of all different genders, all different cultures, all different skin colors. Is that the case?
We are kind of diverse. I will say I think it's a lot of university educated white women who are involved, but we are absolutely like doing our best to be more diverse. And a lot of that is like partnering with other organizations and collectives to kind of amplify a lot of different voices.
And what about advice for, and I'm gonna like paint a picture of someone in a remote, very white town in rural Quebec or rural New Brunswick or rural British Columbia that would really like to begin activism. They know that they want to do something, but they don't know if anyone else feels the same way. And they don't have a network of people within their own community. How would you suggest they get started?
I might be biased, but I think a book club is a great way to start. I run
Okay.
our book club at the SJC, but it's just a kind of a way to, to learn together and to discuss. And so, you can pick out books that you think might be pushing the norm, the status quo, and see who will show up, either in person or online. I also definitely just kind of recommend volunteering in your community if there is a cause nearby that you think you could kind of vibe with, and meet people who are also, active and want to help. Look for the helpers, I think is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are a lot of organizations that are doing online stuff now, so it can be kind of easy to tap into it. I would say, you can Google the issue that you're interested in your province and kind of see who's out there. And the more you talk to people, the more I think you will learn who's interested and who's doing what and how things could be different. And yeah, maybe you'll be inspired to start your own collective, or you'll find one that kind of matches your values.
What about the person that is on the fence? So they did perhaps, watch documentaries during the pandemic and they've started reading, doing inner work, doing healing work, examining biases. And now they are kind of on the fence because there's that discomfort, right? Of putting yourself out there. What would you say to them?
I absolutely encourage everyone to start volunteering in person if possible, just a little bit, because I think it's really inspiring seeing what other people are doing. Like, that's one thing with the SJC is I am so inspired by what everyone has accomplished and the impact that they're having and the care that they're showing for each other. And I think I think there are benefits to online activism, but it can be really toxic too. Like the things that people say to you and the way they try to shut you down, I can make it really hard to kind of keep having that voice. But you don't really get that when you're in person organizing. Like if you show up to a shelter or a library or whatever is in your
Yeah.
community, you see just how people are just showing up and taking care of each other and the joy that they have. And personally, like I just feel better about myself knowing that I'm the kind of person who is like helping other people. I do get a lot of just like self-satisfaction over like this is the kind of person that I want to be and I want to be remembered as like someone who showed up and cared. Um because we only have one life and you could spend it just kind of alone watching TV. And I don't know, I feel better about myself. Just when I said that I was going to be there at 10 a.m. to help them move, I showed up and I did it, and they appreciated it, and maybe they fed me a sandwich and we took some time to check in with each other. And um yeah, just being active in your community, I think, yeah, is good for my soul.
I think that's a fantastic place to end. But I want to ask you if there's anything else that you'd like to say. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about?
Yes, you did ask at
Okay.
one point if there's anything I would do different, and I didn't answer that
Yes.
question. And there is the SJC. We did have a treasurer who stole money from us over two
Oh,
years.
okay.
Basically, like bankrupt us.
Oh, wow.
And this was a person who showed up to every meeting, every event. We really believe, like I still believe that they believed in the cause,
Hmm.
um, and really benefited from the community and wanted to give back to the community. They did do a lot of work for the organization, but we didn't have good financial oversight, and they were a person that was like in poverty. And I think they kind of started taking a little bit of money kind of with you know the plan to repay it, and then I think it kind of snowballed. They ended
Mm.
up stealing like $60,000 from us over two
Oh
years.
my goodness. Wow.
And we basically only found out because like we got to a place where we like couldn't pay bills, and we were like, what happened? um and so I would say strong financial oversight is really important. Like I think it's important to trust each other, but it's also good to hold each other accountable. And I think that's just part of good organizing, is to have that transparency and to really be careful with the donations that people gave you. Um, because yeah, I don't think we showed care to that treasurer by not having good financial oversight, because now they're in a position where they feel all the shame and they are being held
Yeah.
accountable. We did decide not to go to the police and at this time, and we're working on like a more transformative justice solution, because we just didn't feel like it was with our values to
Yeah.
use the colonial criminal court system.
Right.
um but yeah, I think it's important to have trust. I think people are like funny about money, and like it's like they don't want to talk about it, and
It's true.
they don't want to criticize each other in organizing, or make people feel uncomfortable with their questions. But conflict is okay, and we also have to be like brave enough to be in conflict with each other, I think, and hold each other accountable too.
Thank you for that. That is some. Thank you for being vulnerable about that, because you're right. People don't like to talk about money. They don't like to be authentic about things that happen that may not be perfect. So I very much appreciate that decolonial way of um, telling us about that. So I appreciate that a lot, Kerri. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time, and all the best to you. Thank you for doing the work that you do. And I've really enjoyed hearing about your organization and all the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you for your work, spreading the good word of people who are trying to make a difference in their community. It's I think media is really powerful, and hearing from each other and the work that everyone is doing is so important to fueling us further. So I really appreciate what you're doing too, Shauna.